organization?
Well, for one, okay, Genesis is the first book of the Bible, and it represents beginning, new beginning. Well, beginning, period. And what we want to do with these young men is give them a new beginning. So I took the word Genesis and I broke it down, and each letter represents something. And then I took also the number 7 and 8, and I add that with it. And 7 representing complete, and the 8 meaning new beginning. So by the time these young men go through our program for one whole year, they will have a new beginning, and they will start all over in life.
And basically, what we're saying here, Mr. Pendleton, is that many of these young men are young men who are incarcerated. Is that correct? Why don't you give us some information about the incarceration of our youth? I mean, what are we talking about?
Well, I mean, what's so startling, as we've talked over the phone, is that 98% was the number that we've last looked at in terms of African-American young men that are detained in our detention center. And when we saw those numbers, we were just alarmed by that. We were alarmed by the fact that there are very few men who are stepping up to the plate, not just from the standpoint of offering a program. I think it extends much more stronger than that. There's a much more deeper thing that we need to look at. And one of the things that we look at with these young men is that many of them are, yes, they're incarcerated, and Genesis is not an organization that believes in a young person not paying the consequences for an action that they did. But what we don't believe in is the system that says that young person doesn't have an opportunity past that experience. I mean, we've all made mistakes as just people, just as human beings. And we certainly believe that some of these young men, not all of them, the ones who want to change, need to have an opportunity to be able to do so. And we believe that it takes a different voice to be able to do that. We believe that these young people need to be listened to. And many a times what we do in our program is we listen. Many of our most powerful sessions that we do every Tuesday when we start our program really stem from just being able to stand before them and for them to be able to identify with another African-American man who's productive and who's successful and who's doing positive things in the community. Those kinds of things are important for them to see because so much of their lives are lived within a box. And that box many a times often prohibits them from being able to really operate outside of it.
And so all of these elements went into the thinking in terms of how many people are you dealing with? And we're getting ready for our first commercial break, but how many people are you dealing with when you talk about these young men? How many people are we talking about? Are we talking about a large number of folks or whatever?
We're talking about 20 to 25 young men at the Juvenile Justice Center, but the young men that we're going to be dealing with inside the program, we're going to be dealing with 30 young men a year.
And of course, there's a real need for this. And of course, what we'll do, gentlemen, is to take this first commercial break, after which we'll come back and give you an opportunity to talk about this particular program. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Mr. Eric Evans, the founder of Genesis, and Mr. Michael Pendleton, who is the executive director of Genesis. And of course, Mr. Evans and Mr. Pendleton, before we had our first commercial break, we were talking about some aspects of the Genesis program, which was founded by Mr. Evans. Mr. Pendleton, let's have you to give us some information relative to the incarceration of young people, because I think that for the most part, as has been said, we follow the people up to the prison gate, and after they get into the prison gate, we forget about them, and et cetera. But let's look at our young people. I mean, what does it mean to them to be incarcerated now? Let's talk about it from that perspective.
Well, you know, Dr. Haney, we briefly talked about the number, the 98% number. Then there's another greater number when you look at worldwide the problem in terms of the issue of delinquency, which is about 60% of the men that are detained worldwide, whether it be through a detention center or whether it be through a prison system, are repeat offenders. We believe that there's a reason for that. And a part of that reason is the whole incarceration process. That does something devastating to the young mind. And again, we were talking earlier about that box. One of the things that I think that is so important about the Genesis program is we help to empower these young men to operate outside of the box. Many times their box is their community. Many times their box is the mindset, their friends, and maybe even sometimes their family. So how can you excel if you're a young man and you've made a mistake, you're now in a system with an orange uniform on, and no one really says to you that you can be that architect, or you can be that computer technician, or you can be that music artist, or you can be that electrical engineer. What we do is empower the mind. We believe that's the first step. We believe that if we can get to the young man's mind, then that's key. So our program is geared towards knowledge, being able to feed knowledge to the young men. Many a times through our sessions, they understand where they are without us even having to tell them that. They come back to us and testify as to, hey, this is what I've always wanted to do, but no one has ever really said to me, hey, I can do it, and I've got a support base of somebody that can help me along the way.
And this is, Mr. Evans, what you mean by a program, and you've organized such a program. Let's talk about how you bring young men into that program and some of the steps that are taken in terms of moving them from one level to the other, what you're doing now in a real sense.
Well, right now we don't have any young men at our facility, but when the young men get out of the juvenile justice center, they usually call us because we like for them to make their first step. And even if they don't make their first step, we usually call them. And when they call us or we call them, first thing first, okay, what you want to do? We go out and we try to find them jobs, which is another reason why they go back to the juvenile justice center, because they think they can't find no job. So we try to help them find a job, and we also get them prepared, get back off into schools. So if they've been kicked out of school, okay, since you can't go back to school, okay, we're going to get you off in this GED program. And once we get them off in the GED program, and once we get them a job and everything, and we start the process of teaching them how to change their mindset. Just because someone says something to you does not mean that they're disrespecting you. So we try to change their mindset like that. We also teach them how to control their finances, not how to get in debt, and things like that. Teach them how to work on computers, how to type up things, type up resumes.
Very practical kinds of things that they can use
Exactly.
in terms of their own responsibilities.
Yeah, and I mean, and also we might add that in addition to the vocational things that we're doing, we believe that you must not empower that young person without empowering the environment in which that young person lives.
Speak to that.
So very much so, we believe in making certain that that parent or that mother, that grandmother, that aunt, or whomever is that guardian for that child, that they're empowered along the process. Because if you're empowering that young person to excel, you now are nurturing a visionary. So it's very difficult for a visionary to operate within a household that doesn't believe that child is, that they believe that that child can actually make that vision come to fruition. So we believe in being able to uplift not just the child but the family. So there is very much a communal effort in terms of us making certain that we uplift the whole family. And we believe that through that upliftment, that those folks are going to be better, productive members of society. So that is a very important role in terms of, we believe in us of creating a collective effort. And I think we've talked about so many times, and I think I talked with you, Dr. Haney, about the fact of us moving past the phase of identity in terms of who we are as organizations. If the middle ground is the life of the young man or the life of a child, it shouldn't matter if we're Genesis or whomever we are as an organization. We believe in a collective effort. We are very open to working with many organizations in this city. And we will partner with a lot of organizations in this city who may not offer some of the things that we will offer in our building. We don't believe that we have the end-all answer to it all. But what we do believe that we have is a radical choice, a radical view, an alternative choice that is working, and the success rate really kind of proves in the young men that we're dealing with. So we want the community to know that it is a collective effort. It takes all of us to make a difference.
And of course, Mr. Evans, when you first approached the juvenile justice system in reference to such an idea. What was the reaction, and how did they eventually come around to allow you to operate in that environment?
Well, at first they didn't believe that anything could really happen. Because they was like, the question that they asked me was, you got a 17-year-old young man who's reading on a 6th grade level and who is don't have a job, got a child, what you gonna do with it? So my response was, I'll be back. I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do with him. And so got with Michael and got with Sean, and we together have put together a very, very strong plan how we gonna change that young man and how we gonna, you know, with the help of God, just remold him and put him back off in society and show them that, hey, just because they said that y'all couldn't do it, hey, here's living proof right here that y'all, hey, we can do this thing.
And the juvenile justice system is willing to cooperate with you and allow you to deal with these young people.
They actually are endorsing us, if you will. We have 2 support letters, one from the juvenile court system and one from the
court system, the Davidson County court system, and one from the juvenile court center.
So we got they back.
You got their endorsement.
Exactly.
What you have to, so now you're in the process of trying to bring other elements into your program.
Yes.
And of course, we've got about 6 or 7 seconds before we end this segment. When we come back, we'll talk about the kind of support that you need. And of course, we'll be back with you following this short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to this final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Mr. Eric Evans and Mr. Michael Pendleton, and the subject is Genesis and an effort to deal with youth incarceration. And of course, Mr. Evans and Mr. Pendleton, before we end this show for today, let's give you, the 2 of you, over the last 6 minutes to talk about what we might consider to be some of the needs that you have in order to try to do what the 2 of you are attempting to do. There's no doubt about the importance of what you're involved in, but how can our audience and other folks help you in what you're trying to do? Let's start off with you, Mr. Evans, and then Mr. Pendleton. You can assist us in trying to talk about the needs that this organization has.
Well, one of the biggest needs is just help from the support from the churches and from the community. Like right now, we'll organize a program on the 16th of February, where it's like a Hope Award show that will be taping live, and we asking all ministers to come out, check this thing out. That's basically what we need is support, and any financial help that the community can give.
It's recognized, Mr. Pendleton, that this operation does not operate without some kind of support and some kind of financial help.
Yeah, we just talked about us individually writing checks in the studio here, going around and letting folks know what we're doing. We certainly are in a position. With an awesome vision comes an awesome price tag. We will have a state-of-the-art facility right around the corner from you guys, not too far from you guys, over on McGavick Street, downtown Nashville. So we are looking, there are many ways that the community can support.